Morning, Jeff.
There it is. Good morning.
Good morning. How
Got
you
it.
doing?
Pretty good for an old man. How about you?
Oh, I don't know. I must be older than you then.
Oh, you are way younger than me.
No, I am feeling like, I've got tendonitis in both of my legs and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. But trying to keep up with stuff. Yes, lots
Yeah,
to do. I like your statue back there. That's pretty cool.
that was a gift from years ago. It, but I woke up with an impacted tooth.
Oh dear. Are you going in for an emergency visit or are you gonna wait till Monday?
I'll wait till Monday. I've got codeine at home.
Yay. I think anybody over the age of 60 starts like stockpiling pain medication.
Like, didn't get
Oh,
much sleep though.
yeah, I didn't get much sleep because I just couldn't find a comfortable spot. It just wasn't working.
Uh, Here comes the teacher.
Ooh, we get Bud today.
Yeah, better behave.
All right, I will.
Can you hear me?
Morning, Bud.
Morning, Bud.
Good morning. Let's see, is this thing recording?
I think it is, but I can't tell from here.
It said it was earlier.
Okay, so Alan asked me to record it since he's not going to be here, so
Okay.
So
hopefully
we can talk about him.
Yay.
I have one image that Graham sent me. If you guys have any trouble images, today was sort of going to be a roundtable to, sort of address stuff that we've talked about, blend modes, different things. Graham had a question about color. We were going to,
Okay.
so,
Speaking of,
yep.
Well, I have to get a hold of Wi-Fi because I don't have Wi-Fi for
Oh,
my computer, so I'm on my cell phone.
gotcha.
So I couldn't send anything this week.
Good
So
morning. Got your picture, by the way.
so Bud, you changed the lighting in your studio? It looks to be more task lighting. It looks really nice.
I just have some lamps that turn on rather than the overhead, garage light type stuff. So
Bud,
thanks.
hi, Bud. Did you get my picture this morning? I sent it very late. I know. I apologize.
Did get it. Yes. And it's already ready to talk about.
You got
wow.
the corrected one, have you?
I'm sorry.
You got the correct one. I sent two mistakenly.
I got one big one and one smaller one.
I can't remember what I sent you. Hopefully, I sent you a CR2 file.
Yes, I got the CR2.
Okay. Yeah. I sent the wrong one first, but it's from a few years ago. But I think it should prove interesting because a lot of people said, I'm not sure about the color of the berries, but anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute.
All right. Sounds great. Morning, Susan. Hi, Roger.
Hi.
If Susan, if you have any picture that you want to send my way that's a troubling picture, this is kind of be a round table about, whatever anybody wants to bring up. I was hoping we could, talk about pictures and go over some of how to use some of the stuff we've gone over recently. But, I never intended this to be a lecture series. So
Anyway, so yeah, okay.
But I'm going to send one over to you, but email is fine.
yeah, I should be able to get it.
Okay.
So Graham has a question about color. Anybody else run into any questions? Hi, Nick.
Hi, Bud. I was wondering. I think a little while back you mentioned to Alan about the like the magic selection brush and how it's something you said told me you picked up on how it had changed and become more quick, more speedy, more straightforward in its use. So I don't know if I then went back to it and had a sort of looked at it and thought, yeah, and I don't know if I missed a trick. So I don't know if we want to pick up on that a little later or not.
No, we can do that because it's something that I used to do where you put a rectangle or a lasso around the object you want, and then you use the magic selection brush, the old one, you know, with the little star. Yep. But you do a negative, you do a subtraction.
Yep.
In the background, and sometimes it makes a better selection than all the other things that we went over. I'll show you how. Hi, Jillian. And Paul and Nancy. Not sure who. Gimber.
I'm just going to go get me a cup of tea.
Yes.
Good morning, Bud.
Good morning to you. Morning, Roger.
No, I'm just listening.
Oh, I thought I heard you say something.
Yeah,
One more minute.
I've got to run out of here early, so I'll time shift all of this and listen later, but I've got an event to go put on.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, let's get started then. The first thing I like to do is just to put into, you know, the record, basically.
Yeah, but I have my video turned off.
I hope so.
Video, yeah. Okay. Let me go to the desktop here and grab something.
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, I will be turning my video off simply because it's supper time here and I'm going to eat something.
No, that's fine. Let me turn mine off as well. Let's see here. I need to get to, and I want to get to this one. And I want to open this one. And I'm going to share the screen for the moment.
So Bud, while you're setting up,
Yes.
the opposite end of the room, you have this neat light.
Yes.
Where did you find that?
It was on Amazon.
Really? That's kind of cool.
I can't see who's talking. I'm sorry, who's asking?
It was Jeff.
Jeff. Okay, Jeff. Yeah, I'll run to Amazon in a moment and find it. It's really neat because you can bend the ends back and forth and they have their own individual light. Or you can aim it at the ceiling or, you know, whatever you want to do.
Cool.
I just like the light in my eyes. That seems to be really well designed.
Yes. Let's see if this works. Everybody sort of seeing my desktop?
Yeah.
Yep.
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 And we'll go to here. 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 All right, the first thing we need to do is a little bit of a recap. I'm going to make this full screen. Can everybody see that all right?
Yep.
Okay, so on the previous one, which was AfterStack 13, Alan talked about the type tool, and this is just sort of as a reminder for anybody that's going through that the type tool is on number 13. He explored a bunch of ways to use the type tool, and I introduced how you can use smart objects with the type tool. So the whole episode was basically on how to do type. All right, that's out of the way. So now what we want to do is to talk about perhaps what you guys find interesting to talk about. Let's see how I get back there.
Maybe you could teach Alan how to make it a window full screen.
Yeah, that'd be good. Let's see, I'm still sharing my screen. All right, so let's go into Photoshop for the time being. This is confusing to me somewhat, but here we are. And this, I believe, is your CR2 file. Graham, you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, it's not a particularly exciting image, but I took these pictures a few years ago now, and after processing, the berries didn't look natural, and I looked at this image. I thought, well, maybe I'm going to darken it slightly. And the first thing that happens is the reds oversaturate, and when they oversaturate, they change their hue. So I just was interested how Bud would address, would fix that, because reds always seem to be a problem. I think it's got better with dynamic range on the newer cameras, but nevertheless, it's
Well, red always has been a problem with any photograph. There's
Yeah.
certain reds that will not show up, very fluorescent reds, for like in some flowers. You can't see it. You can't see the real color.
Yeah.
the interesting thing with this one is that I can process the picture, and also you can't really see what the berries were like, and I can't remember. It was 10 years ago or something. But they nevertheless they change color, and it's always been a problem to me. If I have berries in a photo and I manipulate it, the bird looks fine or whatever I might be photographing, but the berries always look weird. So that was the problem.
Yeah, would a selective color adjustment
Yep,
help with that?
that's what I did here. So if you go to selective color, which is up under the select menu, can you see that little green square?
Yep.
That's cool. All right. And let's see, if I do this, can you see it magnified?
Yep.
Very nice. All right.
What's doing that?
I've got a Cursor Pro.
Okay.
Like a $10 program. It's never worked except that now that you can use the desktop in Zoom, it seems to work. I wasn't sure it would. But anyway, color range, which is this one, is what we choose. And let's turn this off. And we'll just start over. So we're going to go to color range. And we choose it. This little window pops up. And you can't enlarge this window. It is what it is. But there's a fuzziness control and there's a range control. So the fuzziness control is how many adjacent reds do you want to include, and the range is how far from where you clicked do you want to include. Okay. So here with the fuzziness, you can see that I can take it out to almost the whole picture. What I've done is I've clicked on this berry and several of these berries, and then the range, you see, I can back the range all the way down to pretty much where I clicked on the berries. So let's expand our range out, because the only places I clicked were at the feet and at the beak where he's holding this berry. So it gave me a vertical collection. I could cut this berry out here. You see, you got to have the eyedropper proper. You see, this is one eyedropper. It'll change everything. So if you choose the add to eyedropper and I come out here, it gives me, this one becomes white. Let's see if this.
So would you start by intersecting that mask with a lasso mask, so that you're not changing the inside of its mouth?
Well, you can always paint over your mask with black paint. So
Well, that's true.
I like to see, sort of where it goes, and then I can back it off if I want to. But But anyway, this is what the range does. You can see now that I've clicked the third spot, if I increase the range, you see how it's uniformly getting the background.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep the range close and let's bring the fuzziness down so it really traps those red berries more than it traps the bird.
Sweet.
So at this point in time, we've got mostly the berries and a little bit of the bird's head. And we say, okay, and that gives us a selection. Can you see the selection?
Yeah,
Yeah, the little thingies running around.
the marching ants.
I can magnify it if you need me to show it to you now. So, it's pretty much picked out everything. So let's do just the saturation, hue and saturation, which would be common. So anytime you have a selection and you add a hue saturation layer, it's going to put that mask right there in the layer. Okay. And so now I'm gonna have to move this to the other side. Hang on. All of your pretty faces are over my panels. All right, so here we're on the master. So let's see what the master does. We can take and make the berries all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
We could also choose the hand tool. I guess that's the selection tool. And we could do it here where it's just affecting the reds. So I could back this down some. I could also change the brightness or darkness. And you can see all the berries down here and the face. So let's turn it on and off. Here's before, here's after. Okay, so that's one way to do it. And that's what I did here before. And you can see I just control the berries. Here they're real red and here they're not. The other way I like to take care of things, I've just copied the mask up onto this, but this is a select color. Now, select color is the bottom one in the panel over here. Can you see it down there at the very bottom? So selective color, what does selective color do? Well, if you come up here in the drop-down menu, you see you can individually select any color you want.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I do, it's not going to change yellows. It's not going to change greens. It's only going to affect the reds. Okay. This is a subtractive color arrangement. So if we choose the reds, we have cyan, we have magenta, yellow, and black. So CMYK, just like the printer. And so if I want more red, I'm going to subtract cyan. So I move the cyan this way, I get blooming red. If I want to dirty up the red, I add cyan to it. I can take it this way and it kills all the red color. It's not affecting any other color. You can see the bird's yellow tail is not changing. Only the places that have red in it. So you can see that part of the bird's face has red. So I could go to the mask, mask up. We can see the bird's face. I can get me some paint, black paint. I am at 100% and I can paint the bird out of it. If I want to take out his beak, I can do that as well. So now when I change things, no bird. Okay. So back to the picture. We'll slide our cyan now and you can see that the bird's not changing at all. But I can flame on the red or I can kill it totally. So what I want to do is I'm going to leave the red alone just for a second. And magenta is a warm color. So if you'll notice, if I push magenta, it increases the red. Can you see what it's doing? I can turn them into green berries or I can turn them into really red berries. So magenta is giving me some uniformity. If you look at this area right up here and I move it back and forth, there's skylight. And then you can take the whole berry and make it a bit red. So It looks like it's got a little bit of blue in it, so let's add some yellow to it. And let's take our black and find where the berry looks about right. And so somewhere in there, to me, is a fairly good red color. What would you guys say? Would you want it less red, pale?
I think that's about right.
What are you thinking, Graham?
Yeah, I think it's about right. It's interesting. Ultimately, the interesting thing is that if I was doing that picture as I probably did then, I'd use the standard controls in Photoshop in order to get the bird looking the way I wanted it. But that would be very basic, you know, that would just be, you know, exposure and what have you generally. But it's interesting because of the red saturation that I would need to actually go through the process of this selection and adjustment, and then presumably I'd have to eyeball what I think looks right.
Well, what you had asked about the berries, I didn't approach the bird. I would probably do global things first, as almost everyone does, you know, and then start to cone down on things as you need to. One of the things you can do if you have the TK panel is you can make a color mask. If you make a color mask, can you see up here in the corner?
Yeah.
That's a color eyedropper. This is right at the top. So
Mhm.
this multi-mask, and you go all the way over and you click on this eyedropper and you get something that says this color. And you say, well, what color do I want? And we're just going to pick a red. And I've already picked it once, so you can, and I'll just say, okay. And it makes me a mask. Okay. Now the mask is not perfect yet. I'd like the berries to be whiter so it takes the full effect. The bird is going to enhance a little bit, but because it's middle gray, it's going to enhance less. So let's see what we can do. When you do a mask like this, the light gray, as you remember, is the way you alter a mask, and the black background is the way you output it. So if I want to alter these berries, I want them to be whiter. And when you click on the levels, you see how it pops up as levels.
Mhm.
I can bring this white slider in and everything gets whiter.
Bud,
Yes.
could I just ask a question with when that mask was created, and we've got, yes, the berries are in white, so that, if I'm right, tells me that's where the predominant amount of red is, the color we picked. But because the rest of the picture, you know, the branch, the bird, etc., has got degrees of gray, does that represent the amount of red that is in the rest of the image as well?
It does.
Okay.
And I will show you how that works. So if I take this slider now, which is my middle slider, I can make things brighter or darker. Okay. So I'm going to keep a little bit of the bird. And what I want to do then is I'd like to paint white because I would like this to be better. So I'm going to make this bigger. Let's get us a paintbrush. Let's put white as our foreground color. And we're at 100%. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a softer brush. Whoops, turned into black for some reason.
Oh, you have to use Tony's white and black brushes.
You're correct.
Yeah.
I knew better. So you can come in here and make the whole berry. Do this sort of thing. And you can come down and any of this stuff that you want to, probably too magnified. You know, you can just take it and kind of grossly. You can be more careful than I'm being if you want to be, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So basically we've got us a bunch of berries that now are white. Okay. And so what do I want to do with this mask? How do I want to output it? What do I want to achieve? Do I want to do it with selective color? Do I want to do it with hue saturation? You know, which of these would I want to choose? And I think the one I'd like probably, in this instance, let's go with a hue saturation, just for funsies.
So at the moment, yes, you wouldn't be, you couldn't visualize that you'd created the mask, but you couldn't visualize the results because you needed to choose one of the adjustment layers. Is that right?
That is correct.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Because that's the magic bit to me, Bud, on that is that you've just painted it all white. So yes, it's a mask. So you're saying, yeah, let all this through.
Well,
But the immediate thought might be, well, it's going to go all to red or something. It doesn't, does it?
Yeah.
no, you can also send it to a selection. You don't have to send it to a mask, or you can save it as a channel. You have all of these options in this panel.
Blimey.
Okay. That's 35 worth of power. So let's take a look and see what we've got to work with here. So here are our bright berries. Here's our hue saturation. We can click on something to tell it we want to use this amount of red. And you can see when I click on it, you see how this changes. So it changes to reds instead of master. And it gives me a new thing down here. So let me go backwards one just to show you. Whoops. I guess I have to redo something. Let's see. Hit too many buttons. Okay. All right, so we got it back. So here's our hue saturation, and you can see that down here in this area, there's no little sliders. So if I use this hand tool and I click on the red, watch that color over there. You see how it created sliders? So what it's telling me is that the color I picked is in between these two sliders, and then it feathers out into adjacent colors. Okay. If I want a tighter crop, I can bring this in like so and confine it to just the colors that I want. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. If I want more colors, then I can spread it out. Okay.
Is
So
that the
now-
TK tool, Bud, or Photoshop now doing that?
This is just Photoshop, the hue saturation layer.
Okay.
The only thing I used for the TK was to help me with a color mask.
But what's really neat is you can include more yellow on one side than less blue on the other. You can change the size of those.
Exactly right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So you think about it like you would a brush where everything happens in the center and then you have the softer edges and then you have nothing, right? If you think about it like a diameter through a brush, this is what you've got. So you can narrow in the brush softness, if you would. So at this point in time, let's see what we can do with our sliders. So if we want to reduce the saturation, let's blow it up here so we can see what we're doing. Let's reduce the saturation a bit. So we've got that. We can go back up. We can make it too red, but it gives you control on the reds pretty well.
That highlight looks so much better.
Right. So you can also lighten it up or darken it up. If I want to darken it up, I can create more shadow or I can create more highlight. Okay, and that's affecting all the berries. So when we look down here, it's doing the same thing. So when we change our highlight, you can see I can make the berries as to whatever I want them to be. So something about there looks about right to me. Is that good for everybody?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You are the artist. The artist is never wrong.
I don't know about that, but so do you want more color in the reds? If so, let's take.
You can also change the tint of the berries a little bit up on the hue slider too, right?
Yeah, you can change it right here.
Yeah, so you can kind of change the center color, I guess, would be.
So everybody knows this changes saturation, right? Using the hand, what's it called? The hand tool,
Yeah, selector. Yeah.
selector tool.
Yeah. Color picker.
Well, watch this. If you hold down the command or control key, what's happened? Now you can change colors. The command key controls the hue, whereas if you do it just regular, it's saturation.
Very cool.
Okay, so that's the keystroke that's kind of fun for that. So we can take this and you put it back with a double click and it goes back to 0. If I want to boost the color some, let's put on a selective color layer just to show what we can do on top of it. Here's selective color. Here again, we've got our CMYK, and we want to affect the reds. So let's close in on it a bit so we can see sort of what's happening. And since this is the main berry, I can show you the ones below. Let's say that we want a little bit more red. So cyan red axis is the first one, magenta green, and yellow blue, just like with everything else. Those are the opposites, if you would. So let's take a little bit of cyan out of the reds. So as we move this cyan, you can see you can give the reds a little bit more life. Okay. And if we add magenta, which is a warm color, we can give a little bit of color to the top of it. And yellow would make it a bit more orange. So if we bring the orange in a little bit, we can get that way. It looks like to me that I've got a little bit too much magenta, so I'm going to back off on it a tad and maybe a hair on the yellow. So somewhere in there, at least with that berry, looks good. Let's see what these look like. So we've given it a little more life. When you look at the histogram and you look at the red channel, you can still see that right out here, it's approaching the red. If I wanted to get rid of it totally, I'm going to use a TK. This gizmo right here, when I click it, I get this number. And it puts it right here as a curve, but you're not going to touch the curve. What you want to touch are the blacks, the mid grays, or the highlights. So if I want to change anything as far as the color or the brightness or whatever, this is where I would come. So if I come to the mid grays, at this point in time, I don't want to do anything with the color particularly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can, you have to let go of it to see the effect. So I can brighten up the bird a little bit. And what's the beauty of this is that the highlights can't blow and you can't block up the blacks because it is confined to just the midtones. If I want to go in now and play with the highlights some, let's say I want to knock the highlights down a little bit, I could. I can brighten up the highlights and you can see the color kind of jumps out at us a bit. The other thing I could do is in the background, perhaps a little bit of warmth might be useful. So let's go to our midtones and just warm it up a little bit, maybe toward the brown side here. Some color that's about like the bird. That's a little bit too green. Let's darken it down a bit. I'm at midtones.
What's the sort of shape on the histogram, Bud, that you would keep to on the right-hand side there? Do you like to keep a bit of free space, or
Absolutely.
is the idea not to? Yeah.
If you touch either side, you will blow out or block up.
Right.
So yeah, you want, if you consider this the uprights and the goalposts, you want all of your histogram to be between the in between the uprights. If it touches it, you'll lose it.
If you change your gamut, would the scale on your histogram change?
What gamut do you want me to change? This
Well,
one?
no, if you change the gamut, would the scaling on the histogram, either open up, like, say if you went from sRGB to
Adobe 98?
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it probably would because you're affecting the colors differently, but it may not, the overall histogram should be roughly the same brightness. But how
Right, but
anyone.
if you're expanding the range that you can work in,
Yeah.
just curious.
I suspect if you're massaging colors, probably. Now, I know Alan told you that when he prints, how many people here print? Anybody?
I do some.
I use relative colorimetry myself, and there's a reason. And the reason is color trueness, because if you imagine the perceptual, what happens with perceptual is like an accordion, except you've nailed one side of the accordion down. And so you reach out to your furthest out of gamut color and you bring it into gamut and it changes the position of all the others. So with relative colorimetry, basically the colors are fixed in space, except for maybe the outer 5% or 7 or 8%. And the accordion effect happens to that outer perimeter. So it brings those out of gamut colors into gamut, but it only changes a very few right at the periphery of the spectrum. So if you're doing artwork, that's essential. Do not use perceptual. If you're doing horses, where the owner is really proud of the horse's color, I would suggest relative colorimetry. Okay. Questions?
Yeah, did you tell Alan that before today?
I sent him a YouTube video.
Going back to before you went into the TK panel,
Yes.
and you had the panel up on the right. I'm trying to think what was it called?
Selective color.
Yeah, in that you have two radio buttons in the properties box, one absolute and one relative. Can
Yes.
you kind of explain the difference, why you would select one over the other?
Absolute is like superpower color. Yeah, it doesn't care. It's gonna. If I choose relative, let me show. So if I'm at relative now, if I go to absolute, watch what happens. So sometimes you would use it, sometimes not. But what it does is it gives you a choice when you think you're close. And you might like that maybe in this instance, the relative has a little bit more color, but it doesn't look blown out. If I go up to, this one doesn't have a blowout panel in Photoshop. I wish it did like Lightroom so you could see, where it's out of gamut. But if you go up to view, I think there's a gamut warning. Can you see it up here at the top?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you do a gamut warning, you can see the gray.
Oh, so you've blown it out. Okay.
And so if you go to gamut warning, then you can say, okay, my printer is not going to print this. So let's back it down a bit because
Wow.
Yeah, my understanding about relative and absolute is that relative is a little bit slower effect and absolute is a faster. So relative will give you moving the slider the same amount will show up harder on the absolute than on the relative.
So in this instance, the reason I show you this is because, hang on. It didn't work.
It's like a graduate school level
Ah,
instruction.
sorry. Let's see. Let's just turn off gamut here. So view gamut turned off. What I wanted to show you is that you don't have to get everything back into gamut. You get as close as you can, but the bird is your primary interest. So let's get the bird right first. And if this needs to come back into relative colorimetry, then let's let it come back in on the print. But right now on some of our monitors, at least on mine, I can see a nice red. Okay. If you want to print it, then this red is going to get as close as it can to what the printer is capable of. If the printer's not capable of doing an intense red, then all these intense reds are going to come back to what the printer is capable of. But with relative colorimetry, it's only going to change the outer 5 to 10% that does the accordion effect, and the other 90% is true to color. We good on that?
Yeah.
So for me to try to get this just right, all in gamut, it's hard then to control the bird because you're limited to the colors, because it's almost like perspective now. You've limited your color range to some degree. Graham, what do you think?
Yeah, I was totally with you until you started talking about the gamut, because it's somewhat worried me. I understand the fact that the printer might choose something close, but does that mean that you can't visualize what's going to come out on the print prior to printing it, because unless it's in the gamut, within the gamut?
Now you come to proof setup here at the top. You see that?
Yeah.
And then you can choose your printer profile. So I haven't loaded a printer profile because I have upgraded the system and I've got to go get my profiles and load them back in. But if you choose a profile, so you come to proof colors. And then you change, you have to get the setup first. So let's say that, view proof colors, setup. So custom, let's go to custom and device to simulate. You see, we've got lots and lots of things here. So let's say that I have a display P3. I was trying to look to see if I have a paper loaded in here. That's generic. Let's just do let's go to sRGB. What the hell? All right, so now we're going to proof in sRGB because that's what we're going to show on the web. And so at this point in time, we can do all of this stuff under these conditions to create a soft proofs, okay? And the relative intent here, you can do perceptual saturation. Relative is, does it keep the black point on? Say, okay, you can preview. See what's happening with the berry and the beak? sRGB is blasting it. Okay. So you say, okay, and then you come over here and you can knock down some of that saturation in the sRGB file. And now it's ready for the web. But if I had paper profiles and if I was going to print, then when I come up under view proof setup, I would put in the printer profile. So that's for the paper printer combination. That's what it does. It just communicates. And you go to, proof colors, and you can see all the colors and you can adjust it prior to print.
But
Yes.
can I ask, is it possible, therefore, if you know that you're going to print the photo, to actually do all the editing under the proof color with the proof color on, so you can actually see what's going to come out?
Yes,
Thank you.
but my preference is to create like a curve. Okay, let's say that I create a curve and I take it from where I'm not thinking about a print to where I want to print. Okay, because initially I have a picture that, you know, was good, but now I have a need to print it because I want to put it in the show. Okay. The way I do it for my workflow is I will load on top of my stack a custom curve that I have saved that corrects for color and contrast because I know it's going to come out perfect on my printer. Okay.
So but a curve adjustment could be used to bring it back in for the printer,
yes,
because the changes shouldn't be that severe, should they? If you keep the histogram sort of within the bounds, and
Well,
you are on a recognized color space, when you come to the printer, it shouldn't be the other side of the universe on the thing, yeah?
well, it depends on how many papers you like to run and whether you run one or two printers. I mean, it can get involved. So let's say that we have this picture that Graham sent us and we want to print it. And I have a certain paper that I'm going to use, and I have a printer and a set of inks. So what I do first off is I print the picture, okay? And in most instances, for you guys, the print's going to be too dark. But for me, it's going to be just right. So how did I get there? You get there by viewing lights. You have to look at the print in a good light, okay? Because what you see on the screen when it goes to the printer is going to end up too dark in the print. Let me give you a for instance. Let's say I have this print and I have these two lights, one over each shoulder behind me. I just got these kind that you run along the slider where you call it track lights. And I got a 3-foot piece of track and I put two of these track lights and those are my viewing lights. And Solux can make any degree Kelvin. I personally like somewhere between 38 and 4,000 because that's what museum lighting is. If you're going to show it in a place that's lit with fluorescents, different game. You have to know what light that print's going to be shown in. Okay. One of the juror's choice things I got way back on the other side of life was because I took the time to drive down to where it was going to be, measured the light, and printed in that light environment. And so my print shone, of course, because how many others did that? Okay, so let's say that I have the lights behind me and I have my print in front of me, and my print is darker than the screen. So I'm going to go and change my screen to the same amount of darkness as the print. I'm approaching WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, okay? So if my print is dark, then I put my spider on here and I'm going to do a total screen calibration, and I'm going to cut down the lumens to where when I sit back here and I have the print and the lights are over my shoulder and I'm looking at the screen, I'm looking at the print, I can match the darkness.
Yeah.
The screen. So I know that when I am massaging things on the screen and I know I want to print it, then I'm in the same brightness. So I've taken one variable out of the system. Okay.
Bud?
Yes.
It's Gillian. I don't know if it's only me. I had just sort of grasped everything Alan was saying. You're now also saying something that makes a lot of sense. And I'm just wondering, because while we were doing this, I was also editing something based on what you were showing us in TK9. And it's remarkable how it's improved my edit. But I wondered if you couldn't do a full session on printing as well, because I've just got a bit lost and confused. I don't know if I'm the only one who is a bit lost and confused on the printing one.
Me too.
I'll be more than happy to, sure. I mean, it gets involved because every printer is different. Let me just give you a concept on what I'm talking about, and let's just talk about a black and white grayscale for a second, okay? So let's say that I create a gradient going from black to white, a strip gradient this long, you know. I guess I could go and do one, but just bear with me, and if I lose you, I'll make one. And let's take that and we're going to go to posterize. Does everybody know how to use posterize?
Yeah.
Anybody that doesn't?
I could make one.
If you go up under image and you go into mode, let's see, where is it? I have to
Should be
select.
down at the,
You have to be on a pixel layer.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so now if I go under image, see adjustments,
Yeah.
okay. And if we come over here, we can come down and here's posterize.
Never used it.
If we use posterize, it's only going to give you so many colors. So here I've only got 4 colors, you see. This is the way they did that famous Marilyn Monroe picture, sort of posterization. So I've only got 4 colors. If I want 26 colors, you know, if I want 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors, 5 colors, whatever, you know, I can choose however many colors I want the poster to have. So imagine now that I chose 33 levels, and you ask why 33.
Okay, why 33?
33 divided by 3 is 11. There are 11 zones that were in the zone system. I started out with 10 zones, but as cameras got better, it became 11 zones. And so I divide each zone into high, mid, and low, 33, 11 times 3. So each zone has a lower, a mid, and an upper part, just so I can be more critical. Don't have to. Each zone is its own gradient. It has a dark edge and a lighter edge, but combined, they go from black on the left all the way to white on the right. And so when I print out that 33-step zone on my printer, if I have an older printer, I'm going to get over inking in the darks. So instead of seeing 33 stripes, I'm only going to see 30, or maybe I only see 25. There's too much ink being dumped in the black. How do I fix it? Well, a curve would fix it because you lift the black point off the baseline slightly, take another picture and see how many stripes you have. And you keep doing that until you only have 1 stripe that's black. Is that confusing?
that's fabulous.
Okay. Now, I don't want to change the upper side, so I'm going to lock that curve by putting a point right at the mid portion. So let me open a curve just to show you what that would look like. So when we're looking at a curve here, you see it over here on my, maybe I can drag it out. Let's see. Yeah. So, so here's our curve. And if I lock this point in a couple of spots, nothing above middle gray is going to change. So everything below here is darker colors. Everything above is the brighter colors. So as I move up this scale, all of a sudden I've found the perfect spot. So what's that doing to my colors? It's flattening out the blacks a little bit, but that's a good thing because it's separating blacks. They're not, if you come down to this way, all of a sudden your gamma is the straight portion of a curve. Okay. So if I'm elevating the the blacks, all of a sudden I've got where one stripe is black or two. I mean, there's nothing magic about one stripe. Two would be fine. What you don't want is it to be blocking up 2 or 3 stops higher. You want to be able to see the black cat in the shadows, right? So this part of your printer is what you evaluate first, and then you fix the over inking before you do anything. Otherwise, you don't know where you're starting from. But we can talk about this under a dedicated printing thing if you want, but
That would be great.
yeah. But once you get this curve like you want it,
Mhm.
let's see, I guess it's here. See how you can save a curves preset?
Mhm.
So if I have a paper, let's say I have a photo luster, an Epson photo luster. I can create a curve that I'm gonna stick on top of my stack after I finish editing it like I want it to. It's gonna take into account any over inking, and it's also gonna take into account any color shifts that I might have encountered. Let's say I had too much magenta. If I go into the RGB here, you can change reds. So here's green. Let's say I have too much green and I want magenta. Then I basically pull back the green and everything goes magenta. So I can adjust the colors by adjusting the curve. You can go into the highlights up here. You can go into the shadows down here. I can make a different curve. I can bend this curve in a different way. So all of these things, if you want to get rid of a point, you just grab it and pull it off the line. Right?
So, but if you wanted to set an image for, so say, what I like to do is make digital negatives
Right.
on on a special film for that. So do I go for the film or do I go for making a curve? Because it has to be just black and white. So
So your
I
negatives
can
on
see,
no
yeah,
gray.
so the output negative is going to be basically black and white, or, I could probably posterize it and get grays in there. But this is for, printing salt prints and cyanotypes.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you want it to be merely black and white, I guess you could
Just make it,
posterize it black and white, or would do it, right?
mm-hmm. But if I want to have more grays, then I would have to do what you did here, decide how many layers I
No,
want.
if I wanted this to be black and white, I could come into image adjustments, posterize.
Mm-hmm.
I could give it just 2 colors. Oh, you want a black and white? I know how I can help you. Okay. So 2 colors would be right here. So let's see, I'm not on a cancel. First thing you want to do is to get it to black and white, if that's what you're doing, right?
Okay.
So you can do the black and white filter. In your instance, there's no reason for taking it any further, but let's go into black and white right here. And here's your black and white. You can control all the colors. So if you want your berries to be whiter, darker, you can do whatever you want to prior to.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of what you want. I think yellowtail. So let's say this is good, and we'll just accept it. To move the properties panel back out of my way over here. Let's see. Okay. Back to layers. Okay, so we got a black and white layer. Let's take this black and white layer now. We're going to have to get a pixel layer if we're going to posterize it. So ignore everything above here. Let's go. I'm going to make a stamp. Remember how to make a stamp?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, so I use the Option key, and then I just go to Merge Visible, which is right here. You hold it down until you get your stamp.
Mhm.
That's just easier than trying to use 4 fingers on the keyboard for me.
Well, actually, on the TK manual, there's also a stamp button on the TK panel.
There is.
Yeah, right under the brown section, the middle button. It looks like the middle button right below flatten and canvas. Just go up a little higher. Yeah, up a little higher. You have under the flatten and canvas where it's brown, and then the first row of 3 under that, the middle one. So right next one up,
Next to the garbage
that
can.
one there, that's the stamp button.
Okay,
So I just found that the other day.
okay. I got
So-
you flat. Now I see what you're talking about now. I wasn't sure.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that basically is a stamp, so you're eyeing a stamp, okay?
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway, now let's take and go to Image Adjustments and Posterize. And we're gonna make it 2 layers, and there's a black and white. Okay. Probably not what you want.
No.
So
Sorry,
gra-
Graham.
a gradient map might be the way to go for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know how to use that?
Yeah.
It's kind of complicated, so I wasn't going to expose everybody to it unless I had to, but so anyway, this is the black and white layer. We'll turn it off. Here we're back to color. All right. So if you're going to do a black and white, you need somehow, I would select the bird and make a mask with a bird. Is that what you're talking about doing?
Yeah, I think so.
But let me show you that thing that Nick had asked about, I believe, about the selection tool. So
Mhm.
to select something, and I went and got this rectangular selection tool. And let's say I wanted to select the bird and the berries here. Just like so. Okay, rough selection. And now I'll go and I find, what was that old thing? Maybe it's this one. Yeah, the magic wand tool. Remember that one?
Yep.
yeah.
All right, so if we go up here to the top, we can see that this is an intersect mask, this is a subtract mask, this is an add mask. So mask, selection, add to selection, subtract from selection. So let's choose the subtract. And now if I take this and I click in the outside here, this is a gradient, so it's making it more difficult. Well, you understand, I can clean it up. I can certainly go and get
Yeah.
a selection tool to do that. But somehow I've lost the bird. So let me Command D and try something else. So let's just do,
Select subject as or
yeah,
background.
let's try right here. And let's scroll down a bit. The gradient behind the bird is rectangle. So let's just say I want this part of the bird. Now go to the magic tool. I'm in the subtraction mode and I subtract. You know, and it overran in a couple of places, but I've done a couple of insects and I was blown away as how good it was because I have a black background, it's not a gradient, you know, so I have a solid background color. And I did it that way and it did better than select subject. So if
Wow.
you're having trouble, give it a shot.
Okay.
All right, does everybody know where the Adobe, let's see if I still have it up. I hope I do. Everybody ever seen that?
Mm-hmm.
No.
So what this is color.adobe.com. It's a color wheel, okay? And I don't use a color wheel very much because, you know, I'm shooting bugs and whatnot. But if you're looking to do gradients or you're looking to find different colors, Alan in his talk had mentioned all of these different things, which if you come over here on the left side, you see analogous and you drop down menu.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have monochromatic. I have a triad, complementary color, split complementary, square, compound, shades, etc. So if you're looking for complementary colors, there's only 2 colors. And as you move the wheel around, the colors shift accordingly, but they stay at polar opposites. If you want them to be lighter, you move toward the center. If you want them to be more saturated, you move outside.
What a cool tool.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so these intermediate colors, you can move them lighter or darker as well.
But
Yes.
if you've got your bug in Photoshop and you want to find a complementary color, can you click in Photoshop and somehow get that color through into this color tool? Or do you
Well,
have to remember the hex or something like that?
no.
There's a drop down in the,
Right here, extract theme. See it?
Yeah.
You click on that, you can drop your file in here, and then you can pick your colors off of it.
Oh, excellent. I was trying to work out how to do it. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you want to extract a gradient, same thing. You can pick out a couple of colors on your bug, get complementary, figure out the right gradients, the right saturation, you know. It's really good.
Very good.
So anyway, I just want to let you see that, and all of the hex numbers are right here if you need them.
And that doesn't need you to put in your Adobe license first of all, Bud, does it?
You know, it didn't ask me to sign in or anything, so my assumption, somebody could try it and tell me, because I don't know. As soon as I have a license, I can't do it the other way.
I'll go on mute and give it a go because I'm a complete non-Adobe person. So I'll let you know in about a minute.
Remember everyone, if you want to keep your Adobe prices where they are, you have to do it before January 16th, or they're going to raise the prices on you. Everybody aware of that?
Yeah, you have to
Yep.
go to the annual billing versus the monthly to keep the same
Right.
price per
You
month.
actually have to cancel your current subscription and resubscribe.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nick told us that last time, and I can
Yeah.
confirm that what he said was true.
well, I
Yeah.
did it, so,
yeah,
It worked out.
I was on, yeah.
so
If
you
you'll
have to keep it for at least a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to pay for it up front.
Yeah.
But instead of 240 a year, it stays at 120.
Yeah.
That's worth the effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So up here at the top, you see the color palette I've created here? You can save it and output it. So you can take that color palette into Photoshop and sample it there for foreground, background colors, gradients, whatever.
Yeah. And there's another tool I use. It's from Blake Rudis, and he has a lot of color work like this. And you could extract the palette and the complementary colors and see if you're oversaturated, but that's another purchase.
Yeah, Blake's a good guy.
Yeah, he works with Tony on his panels. So
Yeah. But you know, I mean, you
but
can
this
do
actually kind of looks easier than Blake's panels.
We're good to go on that, Bud. It's working for me.
Okay,
Oh, good.
Thank you.
so here's a triad. So the triad, you see, as you move it around, they stay wherever it is. So this is an easy way to, if you're not as color savvy, you know, and you're trying to learn, this is a great way to do it. You can see that magenta's across from green, yellow's across from blue, you know, red's across from cyan. Just like we saw in the select panel, the select.
Mhm.
All right, so what else would you guys like to talk about? Let me see.
I'm trying to figure out how to cancel my Adobe account.
Well, you can call them up, or you can they have a bot that does stuff if you want to change your account.
I thought I was on annual and I just looked and I'm on monthly and it's like,
Oh, so that's better, but you can still change that.
Yeah, what you do is I called Adobe just because I'm always unsure. And I got to talk to an Adobe person. He said, yeah, we have to cancel and resubscribe before the 16th, and you get it yearly, but they charge you up front, of course. And you get it yearly for 20, and you're grandfathered in after that, or grandmothered in.
Yeah.
Bud,
Yes.
just to follow up on Gillian's question, I think. I just tried the color wheel, and I can drag an image to the Adobe panel to get the color wheel, or I can set one off the computer, but I can't seem to get one out of Photoshop. Is there a way to go directly from Photoshop into that color wheel to see the complementary?
I don't think so.
I have one on mine. Well, I mean, you have the color wheel on your in your panel up here. That's
Yeah.
the color, in like that upper right corner.
Where?
But you've got it in Photoshop, but it doesn't have all the functionality that you can get out of adobecolor.com.
Oh,
As far
okay.
as
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been using that one for a long time, and you can just add points. If you want
Just-
4
it just
points
seems-
within the color.
It would be just so wonderful to have that within Photoshop, so you can actually
Yeah.
select a background or something, rather than having to export it and then
Yeah.
It,
That's
it
the
did
thing
actually,
that-
about 4 years ago, you could actually pick up a color from your Photoshop image within Photoshop, but they took it out.
When I went into the website, it told me that I could pay for Adobe Express. So I don't know, Gillian, if they took it out, I don't know whether that's where they shifted it to.
No, they put it on that website. The website came up at the same time. Bud probably
all right.
remembers.
But there was a 30-day trial on Adobe Express. So I don't know if that would open the
That's
door
something you get
to
on
doing
your
that.
phone. With the Adobe subscription, I've got it free on my phone. I use it sometimes. It's
Oh,
quite
right.
handy.
Yeah, because like I said, with Blake's color programs, he has a button you can push and it'll give you a color wheel into a Photoshop file, so you could lay that into your image stack. But again, you had to pay for Blake's program for that. I don't know if Tony has something built into his where you could get a color wheel layer.
See, I want to take my color palette from Adobe, adobecolor.com, get it into Photoshop while I'm working on my photo.
Well, you could just copy it and then like just select that one section that has the colors and the hex numbers, and you can go from there.
I can probably superimpose it on top so I can click on.
Yeah.
I usually have sometimes like extra space on top to do any sort of like color mixing.
But
Anyway,
I think
so
I'd have
just
to
make
probably get, if I screenshot something, I'd probably have to get it as a layer, but it doesn't matter. I'll find an answer. Thank you. Still, that was useful.
I'm sorry, I was having an audio problem here. Hang on.
we got you.
Did Bud tell us about his light?
You what? Can you hear me now?
Your light. You're going to tell us, because I'm going to be in the UK soon and I'm going to get one. Well, what's going to be in the US?
Hang on, I'm having difficulty with the audio, sorry. Is that any better?
Yeah, I can
Your voice is fine. We can hear you.
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing you guys. Let's see. Audio. Select a speaker. Done. And let's see. Okay. Somebody speak to me. Let me see if I can hear you. Hello?
Can you
Yeah.
put your light into the chat, the link to your light in the chat, Bud, please?
The Solux lights, the viewing lights?
Yeah,
The one that-
the arm behind you, that new light that they were talking about at the beginning of the,
Oh, the one back here.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's see. Let me go to Amazon real quick and I'll see if I can find it. Let's see, right here. Hard to do from a Zoom. Let me see here. Mail. Zoom. There is Safari. I'm in Safari. Zoom has taken over Safari. Let me see if I can look it up on my phone. You guys talk a minute.
Okay.
What other things would you like to discuss?
I think maybe in a future class, converting to black and white images, I'm starting to dabble in that and just
I like
something
that.
beyond that, just slapping the Adobe monochromatic profile on it, just
Because it should be possible, Julie, shouldn't it, to mimic the different color filters?
yeah, it just
Yeah.
instead of, I've been kind of doing the hit or miss, is like, but if there's a more,
There is. I've got a stack of 4 layers that works great.
oh, okay.
I'll
I was
give it to
also
you.
interested in using TK9 with black and white, but I haven't had time to look into that.
Nor have I, but it looks like it's going to be good.
You guys are lucky it's winter. You've got a lot more spare time.
Yeah, we got 4 or 5 inches of snow here in
Are you all
southern,
trapped?
yeah, I'm in northern Alabama. We're not supposed to have 5 inches of snow on the ground.
Yeah, I've got 3 myself.
Yeah,
got
our
What are you
city's
talking about,
locked-
Gillian?
Alabama?
Yeah,
Sorry?
There was a hoar frost this morning. What do you think I was doing at 9 o'clock?
Taking pictures.
Shoveling.
That's the
So
one.
I've got 30 degrees, sun. I tell you, it's a different world.
yeah,
Mhm.
our city's locked down because no one knows how to drive on 2 snowflakes, let alone 5 inches.
Do they have gritters, Julie?
Do they have what?
Do they have gritters, or do they have to
They don't
contract
really,
them in?
because we get like 1 snow a year, so they can't really justify spending the
Yeah.
money.
Having all that
It's like the
stuff.
UK.
Yeah,
But
wait
you're
till
very
the-
lucky you're not in the UK, because in the UK when I lived there, it was always the wrong kind of snow and they couldn't find gritters and
Wrong
everything
kind
was
of salt. Yes,
disaster.
Gillian, yeah.
yeah, they
And
wait
there
for
were
the
leaves on
solar.
the tracks. I mean, it was just bizarre. I'd come from Holland where everything just happened, was organized, there was snow and you got on with your life. In the UK, everything stopped.
Yeah, here we're waiting for the solar snow clearing process. It's
Is it
cheap.
due
We
the,
just have
at
to
the end of
wait.
next week?
Yeah, yeah. So it's my telescope's been inside for a couple of weeks now, and it doesn't look like it's going back outside anytime soon.
Well, tonight, can you get one of the planets is next to the moon? I can't remember
Well,
which one.
Oh, my cloud filter isn't working.
Too many clouds.
Well, I've got beautiful blue sky. I just won't be up.
Yeah, we have cloudy skies for ever and ever, I guess. But but like we have a big, like on the 25th is the big planet conjunction thing, and we don't know if we're going to see that or not. But it's just I do the macro and I do astro, and right now I'm doing more macro because like I said, my telescope is parked inside because there's I did
Must be
think-
very cold to go outside of the telescope when there's snow and ice and.
Well, if it's a clear sky, the cold doesn't bother it because I actually have a special camera that freezes the sensor. It brings the sensor down to 0 Celsius, and to keep a standard temperature on the sensor, so the noise, because I'm exposing for 5 or 10 minutes. So to keep
I wasn't
the
thinking about the
sensor-
camera, I was thinking about the person.
Yeah, well, I set it up outside, then I come inside and operate it all from inside, so I don't.
Ah, that makes sense.
So what's your portal number there?
We're about a Bortle 4 or 5, but I shoot narrow band, so it blocks out all the city lights. Only thing I can't overcome is if the target's too close to the full moon, but for the most part, shooting narrow band, I don't pick up any city light pollution.
I'm outside of Chicago. There's a guy who does it out here, and I was
Ah.
like, how in the world? I can't even see the sky.
Yeah, well, it's narrow band is the way to go.
Bud's just given us the link.
Yeah.
Yeah, the phone, I
Sweet.
mean, the lamp. I found it and it's from Amazon.
Yeah.
No,
It's very nice.
just got put in my cart. Thanks, Bud.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Bud, very much.
Any other subjects you guys would like to touch on, or what would you like to do in the near future?
Near future.
I mean, do enough of you print that we want to talk about printing? I mean, I don't want to
Um,
do it for
Oh,
everybody.
yeah, printing would be great.
I would
Yeah.
really like you to go through. I got a bit lost in some of the stuff you were talking about, and it sounded so interesting.
With the printer?
With the printing, yes, what you covered today. I was trying to think through what Alan told us, and I was just getting completely confused.
I will see if I can put together sort of a workflow, and that way it'll sort of guide you through my process anyway of how I evaluate a printer,
Mhm.
and paper. And when I save those curves, then I'll put the curve, the paper name on the curve. And the printer. Mhm. That way I don't have any trouble when I pull down my list of saved curves for printing. I just pick out the one I need, stick it on top of the stack, output it, and print it.
I thought I understood it when Alan told us, and now I wasn't, but once you got deep into it, I wasn't sure what I understood.
So, are you
everybody's
using
gonna-
ICC profiles?
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's in addition to your curves, or
Yes.
okay,
When you soft proof,
yeah,
choose your ICC profile for your printer and your paper that you're using, and there'll be a combination for all sorts of stuff. I didn't realize I didn't have my printers set up because I moved downstairs, upgraded a computer software, and I got to go and do it all over. So, it's nice to have a folder on your desk somewhere where you keep all your profiles. So when Photoshop dumps them and you have to reissue them, you can do it.
Mhm.
That would be tip number 1. Don't have to go search for them again. But if I got to use Red River paper, or if I use Epson paper, I have a curve for that particular paper. And right now I only have a printer that'll do, 22 by 17. I used to have a 24-inch printer that I use, but I'm overdoing exhibitions and stuff. So
speaking of dumping things,
yes.
you said to go to the annual subscription. I need to dump my Adobe account and re-up it as an annual.
Right, just tell them that you want to do that in your thing.
Yes, that's what,
when you
before the
call 'em.
16th, yeah, because right now it's January 11th, so you've got about 5 or 6 days to go. So, yeah, I was unsure. Nick said it, and I believe Nick, of course, but I'm always having to make sure of stuff, just me. And I went there and it was exactly as Nick said, you have to dump it and re-up it.
But
But will I
You
lose
are-
anything? That was, excuse me. Will I lose anything in that process? Is there anything I need to back up?
Not that well, if you have a bunch of presets and stuff, you probably want to save them. In your case, you might want to call Adobe and just get somebody to talk to you.
Okay, thanks.
That's
Sorry.
what I did. You know, I don't save a lot of presets and stuff, so I was good to go. I do save those curves, but I keep them in a separate folder.
I was just
Not
going to
bad.
say that for those people wanting to do black and white, quick and easy, one button. The old Nick Silver Effects Pro
Oh,
still
I
does a
love
fantastic
Silver Effects.
job.
It's
Yeah.
expensive.
Very
It is
expensive.
now.
It's
It
one
is
click.
now.
$100, it's expensive.
Well, for me, it is. It's very expensive. You know, I had to dump all the topaz because they wanted money every year now.
Let me show you something real quick. I'm going to share.
But I just wanted to quickly ask Bud, I'm very interested if you could run through TK9. Even what you did today was very interesting, but I don't know if anyone else got it in recent times and is interested.
Sure. I'm always interested.
How many people are not interested? That's what I'd like to know. You know, Alan always approaches it and you get 2 people and there's 50 watching and you don't know how many people really like it or who don't. So for me, how many people don't want to hear about TK9
It's
is
a good question. That'd be a question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
Yeah, because I'm just starting to use it more. I got it when it was on sale, but I'm just starting to incorporate.
Yeah, I'm the same, and I'm unaware of everything it can do, and I'm not going to live long enough to watch all those videos. It'll take about 50 years.
Yeah, Bud, I mean, as
For my
an
part,
example, I mean, I don't use Adobe, but what that tool does, I look at it and try and extract what I could do in Affinity Photo. So it has a value to me, to someone who isn't even perhaps using Photoshop.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Graham.
I was just going to say, rather cynically, that it's so complicated printing and colour that I think I'm just going to go black and white and forget the rest.
I was going to show you my stack of 4 that I use for black and white if you're interested.
Yeah. So that's 2 out of all of us.
And there were
Yeah.
3 because
There's
the
3.
yeah.
All right, Photoshop. So if I wanted to do a black and white, let me move you guys out of the way again. So let's just take this. I'm going to go to duplicate layer. And I'm going to come down and make it into a new file. So I don't mess with that one. So here we have a brand new file of Graham's photo. And we'll do the command to click on it, I guess. So there's our duplicate. So if I want to make this into a black and white, the top layer is a gradient. Well, didn't want to do that. There's something called a gradient map.
Mm-hmm.
So a gradient map is a very cool item. It looks like this sort of thing over here. And if you click on it, you can see that there are all sorts of presets and whatnot, foreground to background. And you can add stops. So here's white, here's black. You can make them into colors. But we want black and white, and we want a grayscale. So this is exactly what we want for our bird. So it looks like that we're backwards here. So foreground to background. Let's
Profiles, switch it.
go to basic here and just, is this the one? Yeah, that's better, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got the gradient map open, but we haven't really changed anything. We have a black and white. And when we go to our layer stack, it looks like this. And what I'm going to do now is to put a layer below that. And the layer I'm going to put below that is black and white. So here's our black and white layer. As you can see in the layer stack, it sits below the gradient layer. The gradient map looks downward all the time and changes according to what's below it. It's forever changing. It modifies as need be. So if we go into the black and white, we have all these colors that we can change. So we can change the brightness of the berries. We can change the brightness of the bird's tail. We can change, is there any green in here? Nope, no green. How about cyan? Not much cyan. A little bit on the beak. That's about it. If we look at blues, we've got a little bit of sky blue, so we can increase our eye shine. Magentas, there are going to be some magentas in the berries, so we have some control over that. So we can fine tune our black and white based on it. If I want to take this hand tool and I want it to make this area, which I know is a little darker, I can darken the bird down. Maybe I want the berry to be a little bit lighter. Something like that. But just what kind of control you have. And there's one more layer you can add. So if we go to our layers panel, the only reason I'm clicking on the copy is when you add a layer, it goes to the top. So I want it to appear above this layer and below this one. So the next thing I'm going to open is a hue saturation layer. Hue saturation can do interesting things too. With the, let's go to reds. With the red slider, that lightness. So you can really fine tune your black and white using the gradient map on the top layer until you get exactly what you want. This would be a lot better than just a standard black and white conversion. If I went to do a standard black and white conversion, I'm going to put it as a layer above the top here, and we'll turn all these off.
So the hue saturation is underneath the black and white.
Yes.
Okay.
You can try it either way.
Oh, okay.
So if I come here and I'm just going to put a standard black and white layer up. There's our standard black and white layer. And if I go back to the gradient map, I don't know that I can put them up side by side, but just try to grasp the image, and then I'll turn this one off, turn this one on. You see how much more dynamic that is? So it just gives you more control doing it that way. So those three layers, if you want to do black and white, really work quite well.
Bud,
Yeah.
I've happened to got Nick open and that image. Can I share my screen just very briefly?
No, absolutely. Go ahead. I'm good to go.
Okay.
Do a longer one.
Do you have to drop out first?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I
No,
do. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm stopping share. Your
Okay.
turn.
Okay. So the only reason I'm showing you that is, can you see the definition that's come out on the chest? This is just a click on the nick. I haven't. Is there a way of doing that? Because I quite like the texture, the fine texture in these. So splitting up the gradient so you can actually see the detail a little bit more. So I'll just drop out again.
Can you magnify that a couple of times just so we can see it?
Yeah, sorry. I'll go back in. You got me?
Coming.
It's coming. There it is.
So okay, I'm not saying it's good. It's just literally one I've clicked on the left, but it's brought out the gradation. It made it a much more pleasing image. I don't. It's too much, I know, but it's actually pulled out the feather detail a bit. Whereas so I just wondered how you go about that. So I'll just let me drop
Okay.
it out.
I'll share mine. Let's make it a little bigger. So if we go and do a sharpening, it's going to do pretty much what you did. So let's I'm going to do it.
It's up under filters, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it that way. So filter, I'm going to go to sharpen, and I'm going to do smart sharpen. The only reason I use smart sharpen is a bigger window. Makes it easier to see what I'm doing. Move this guy over, and we move this guy over. Because when you do this, and why is he not showing up in my smart window?
Preview.
Because I don't have a pixel layer. Hang on. Pixel layer, filter, sharpen, smart sharpen. And we'll minify it some. So in this instance, if we magnify it, you can see that it really didn't do much for us, did it? So I'm going to pull this guy over. You can see the details, but you're getting all of this kind of a moe pattern. So one of the things you can do with this sharpening is to start off, let me stop it. I'm going to cancel. Let's take this layer, and I'm going to convert that layer to a blend mode named darken. Now, why would I do that? What's going to happen when I go back to the filter? So if I go to sharpen, smart sharpen, and I have it on darken,
It won't touch the whites, or it gets rid of, lowers the whites.
Can you see the bird in the black and white picture? So the black lines remain, the white lines are gone. So I have sharpened the bird without adding all the white lines. So when you look at the face up here, you see how nice that looks?
Yeah.
Okay, if I add back, let me turn the preview on. This is what it would look like without darken blend mode. This is what it looks like when you take the white lines out of the algorithm.
So where did you get your PhD in Photoshop?
Yeah, really.
I'm old. I've done it for a long time, and I try to pay attention, just like you guys. Nothing different. I'm just ahead of you.
That's really good, Bud. I like that.
What if I had an iceberg? What if I had an iceberg and I wanted to augment the highlights without adding the black lines? I would use screen or lighten. Lighten is what I'd usually. And so with lighten, it eliminates the black lines. So anytime you're playing with, darken or lighten, this is the way it works. And so if I click on the bird's breast here inside the picture, there's the sharpened. Here's the before. Here's the after. Here's the before. Here's the after. It won't show you that over here. I can do that all day long. Black and white doesn't change. But the preview button shows you what it would be like without darken blend mode.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what would happen if I turned on the white lines, but I don't think it would be pretty. But this is a way of sharpening There's the preview. There's off. And let's see. I think there's supposed to be some way. Nope.
I'm glad we don't have to do a short test at the end of today.
Do what now?
I said, I'm glad there's no short test at the end of today's AfterStack.
I think we better call it quits or Alan's going to shoot me. I hope it was.
Yeah, really.
Hope you found something useful.
Don't
Very,
close that.
very.
Don't
I
close
found
that.
your TK9 thing you did earlier was like a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
We can go through it again. Those, for $50, Sean Bagshaw does a most phenomenal job. I mean, he is so to the point, no words wasted, and each thing is only about 5 or 6 minutes long. So when you're looking at 40 videos, you're not looking at a long time. He just gives you 5 minutes of intensity that you can understand and play with and go to the next one. So I bought the videos. I've looked at all of them more than once because you don't just get it one time through. And they're short and highly recommended.
Yeah, what I
Thank
often do
you.
is
I'll-
have the
I'll think
videos
about
up
that.
on my iPad and then, but try and do it at the same time on the computer so I could kind of go back and forth from what he's
Right.
doing.
Your smart sharpen window. There's a drop down. I just wondered what that showed you.
Oh, let me go back to it. I'm sorry. Where is it? Filter sharpens, March sharpen is here. You're talking about this one here?
The
Auto highlights. It does what I did, but it does it very minimally. In other words, if I want to totally fade the whites, you see how I can fade them?
mhm.
And you can go tonal width, so you can go even further or back. So it's doing what I do, but then what happens is this doesn't reset. So as soon as you close it and you open another picture, you go, you have to go back and do it. You can play with the radius. I mean, this is just playtime here. So find out what works for you. It does a lot of what we did. If I want to fade the blacks, I can fade the blacks, tonal width. I like fading the whites.
Yeah.
So you can see how if I preview it, this is what the bird looks like that way. So I can't quite get back to where I was with the black and white.
Mm-hmm. So if you had it as a smart object,
If I had, what would it do?
the pixel layer as a smart object and then did that.
It would work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anything inside the smart object, you can't destroy unless you open the smart object. So it's like the old Ziploc bag, you throw in a few layers and those layers are protected. And if you want to open that smart object, you double click on it and you get a new tab at the top. And that new tab just shows you what's inside the Ziploc bag. And so you can move stuff around and whatnot, add filters. But once it's back into a smart object, you can add this as a smart filter is what you're asking, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're going to call this the Bud Perrot zip bag theory.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I do to improve the texture is make a duplicate layer, run the high pass filter on the top layer, and then blend it back in an overlay, and sometimes mask out and just kind of reduce the opacity, and it kind of brings up the texture.
I do that too.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So you just do a high pass on the smart object.
Yeah, I do a duplicate of the layer. First, I duplicate the layer.
So here's a duplicate layer, smart object.
Yeah, so,
Like the high pass,
yeah, do a
filter. It's
high pass.
High pass.
And usually around 9. The level would be about 9 on the radius. You know, it's kind of, and then overlay, you know, accept that, and then change the blend mode to overlay, and then turn on layer 1, and then adjust the opacity, and if it's too much, if it's too crunchy, and if it's, and in some areas just too much, then I just would mask out, like the background, for example, just to bring it more up into the feathers.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
So yeah, again, I usually do make a smart object because sometimes I want it like a 5 or a 7 on the radius, sometimes 11, but generally the sweet spot for me is like around 9.5.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly how it works,
I learned
but
something.
it works.
Yeah, I like that one.
Excellent. Well, I better call it quits on this thing or Alan's gonna shoot me.
But that was fantastic. Thank you.
You're
Yes,
most
very,
welcome.
very
All right.
wonderful.
All right. Thanks for the nice image, Graham. That was awesome.
That
If
was
you-
that was a random image, not my best one.
No, but it gave us all the information we needed to talk about.
Yeah.
What I would like to do as a group is just everybody, if they have an image, you know, either send it to me or be prepared to put it up on the board. But if I need to control what I'm doing on this side, if you send it to me ahead of time,
As a,
and whatever you want to send it as.
okay. I
Is
sent
that
you
for
one, but
Discord?
You know what? I can create a Dropbox. I don't know how to get the link to you.
But you know, do you have a drop on Discord?
Yeah, usually people get to me down there in the AfterStack section.
Okay.
If you'll post it in the AfterStack kind of a place down there, I'll find it. Or the other one is the VIP section. I guess I don't know where things go, so I have to look around.
okay.
All right.
Thank you very much, Bud.
I'm
Thank
gonna stop
you.
here and wish you all well.
Thank
you,
you.
Bud.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Enjoy.
Thank you,
It's a
Bud.
golden
Yeah.
hour here.
All right. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.